We're here on a motion to participate. Ms. Wiggins is with us for the department. I'm sorry, I guess Ms. Gutierrez is handling it for the department. Mr. Ingram's with us representing the children. Ms. Archer's with us representing Ms. Lopez, the mother, who is with us. And Mr. Taylor's with us representing the father, Mr. McClendon, who's with us.
Thank you, Your Honor. Officer Cummings, who do you work for?
The Amarillo Police Department.
And are you a certified police officer?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you briefly tell us what education background you have for that?
So I currently have a active peace officer's license through the state of Texas. I went through the Amarillo Police Department's police academy, which was approximately 8 months, where I learned the laws for Texas, penal code, CCP, and etc.
Okay. And how long have you been an officer with APD specifically?
Approximately 6 months.
And what date was that incident upon?
It was March 10th, 2023.
And what was that call for?
It was in regards to a domestic dispute.
And when you arrived at the home, who was the alleged victim?
Alyssa Lopez.
And what did she state?
She said that she had come over to see her kids, and they had gotten into, her and her ex, Jonathan McClendon, had gotten into an argument, which eventually turned into a physical altercation.
Objection, Your Honor. May I take the officer on brief void hour?
Yes.
Officer Cummins, are you reading from your report?
Yes.
Do you have an independent recollection of this incident?
Yes, sir.
Okay, can we ask that you testify from that recollection as opposed to reading from your report, sir?
Yes.
Excuse me, Mr. Taylor. Officer Cummings, if you need to review it before you answer, that's fine. You're entitled to look at it. I don't think he wants you just to read from it. So
Exactly.
okay. All right. Go ahead.
So we get dispatched out there, arrive on scene, and the victim, Alyssa, is outside the residence. She's yelling, screaming, causing a scene. We try and figure out what's going on. And she initially said that she was assaulted by her ex whenever she came over to see the kids. We were unable to get the other side of the story at first because Alyssa was being very loud and belligerent, preventing other officers from talking to Jonathan and getting his side of the story. I placed her in handcuffs, escorted her to my patrol vehicle to separate her from the residents so that other officers could talk to Jonathan. She said once again that she had come over to see the kids and that they had gotten into an argument and which turned physical.
Now, when she said it became physical, did she describe what was the physical part of it?
Yes, she said that she was punched in the face.
Did she identify who she was punched in the face from?
Yes, Jonathan.
And did you observe anything on her face to corroborate that?
Yes, ma'am. I saw red marks and swelling on both of her cheeks.
Now, Officer Cummings, while you were there on the scene, did you help Alyssa fill out an intimate partner violent form?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you have a copy of that form in front of you?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, Officer Cummings, as an employee of the Amarillo Police Department, do you have access to the records of Amarillo Police Department?
Yes, ma'am.
And are you familiar with how these records are kept?
Yes, ma'am.
How many pages is this intimate partner violence packet?
It is 5 pages.
Okay, now I'm going to refer to this as Exhibit 1. Are these records kept in APD's ordinary course of business?
Can you explain?
Is it Amarillo Police Department's ordinary course of business to create these records like intimate partner violence packets?
They're created through the state, I believe.
Okay, and is it part of your job? Strike that. Now, did you help Alyssa Lopez fill out this packet?
Yes, ma'am.
And does this packet also mark the injuries that she has?
Yes, ma'am.
In filling out this packet, would you like to review what her response was and whether or not the physical violence had increased in severity or frequency over the last year?
According to the IPV packet that I filled out with her, it said that she has been assaulted before, multiple times at the house and other locations, to which she has made reports with APD.
Did she also indicate that Jonathan McClendon had threatened to kill her?
Objection, Your Honor. This is all going to be hearsay.
If it was made by the mother, no, sir, overruled.
You can answer, Officer Cummings.
Yes, she said that she had been threatened in the past.
Did she indicate she had been threatened with a weapon?
Yes,
Did she indicate that she had been choked or attempted to be choked?
yes,
Did she indicate that she believed the other person was capable of killing her?
yes,
Okay. Now, at the end of this incident, did Alyssa leave the property?
yes, ma'am.
Can you please explain what happened with that?
So Jonathan wouldn't answer the door or open the door. Everything that our entire interaction with Jonathan was talking through a solid door. At one point, he called our dispatch and requested to talk to a supervisor. Later informing the supervisor that he wanted Alyssa trespassed. The entire trespass form and everything was filled out on scene, in which we had to pass the trespass form underneath the door because Jonathan would not open the door. He successfully filled out his portion of it, and Alyssa was trespassed and told to leave the property, which she did.
Okay, pass the witness.
Was the residence where you were, was it Alyssa's residence as well?
No, it was listed as Jonathan's.
Okay, in the property records, or how did you come to that conclusion?
I believe the address that we were at, which was 5226 Royce, was listed as Jonathan's. I don't remember how we determined that it was his for sure.
Okay, and in your report, you mentioned that you were able to convince her to leave the property. How did you do so?
I informed her that she was trespassed and that she could not be on the property.
Did she ever tell you that she lived there as well?
I believe she might have mentioned it earlier that she had, whenever they were together, she had lived there, but she hadn't been living there for some time.
Was she told that charges would be filed against her if she didn't fill out the IPV?
No, ma'am.
Now, Officer, I believe your report indicates that at that time she was actually living at a different address, I believe on 3rd Street.
I do not remember what her specific address was.
But she had come from a different location to street where Jonathan was living and where he had the kids with him.
Correct.
Correct? Okay. But the clear indication was that that was not her address.
Yes.
Now, it's also clear from your report that at no time did you or any of the other officers see her inside that residence, did you?
I did not.
And at no time did you or any of the other officers see Jonathan strike her
I did not.
or see him outside the residence?
I did not see him outside the residence. Correct.
And at all times that you had any kind of interaction with either of them, she was very emotional and very upset and very angry toward him. Yet he was exactly the opposite. He was calm.
Your Honor, I'm going to object. That's facts, not in evidence. I don't have an issue with Mr. Taylor inquiring about what Mr. McClendon's demeanor was.
Yeah, just put it in a question form, Mr. Taylor, and you're good.
Yes, sir. Was there any indication at all that Mr. McClendon was at any time upset, emotional, distraught?
I do not know. I did not talk to Mr. McClendon. I only talked to Alyssa.
Okay. There's nothing in your report to indicate that he was distraught or that any of the other officers indicated to you that he was upset or emotional, correct?
Correct. He was just uncooperative in the fact that he wouldn't open the door.
Okay. Was there any particular reason that why do you call that being uncooperative?
It made it very difficult to communicate with him from what the other officers were telling me.
Okay. But he had every legal right to not open the door, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, you assisted, if I recall your testimony, you say that you assisted Elisa Lopez in filling out the paperwork that made up the 5 pages of her victim statement.
Yes.
And one of those pages includes a diagram showing the location of the injuries that she indicated she received, correct?
Yes,
And the only indication of an injury was an X marked to her upper right cheek. Is that correct?
yes.
Nothing on the left side.
There's another diagram directly above that that has two X's on both faces, or on both sides of the face.
Okay, you're gonna have to be a little more clear. Under the box or the boxes called demeanor, physical condition, appearance, or speech.
Directly to the right of that is another where it says body injury diagram.
Oh, okay, all right.
There's two X's.
So why would there be two X's on that body diagram, but not on the facial diagram below that?
I must have forgotten to mark the other X.
Okay. Then in the actual body of your report, Elisa said that Jonathan punched her 2 times in the face.
Correct.
All we have is her statement to you and then her statement on the victim statement form. Is that correct?
To my knowledge, yes.
And on the victim statement form, in her own handwriting, she wrote, "Hit me in my face about 2 times." Is that correct?
Yes.
No charges were accepted and filed as a result of this incident. Is that correct?
I do not know for sure. I know it was turned into detectives, and that's as far as I know.
Thank you, sir. I'll pass the witness.
All right, thank you. Mr. Ingram, questions?
No questions.
All right, anyone else have follow-up questions for Officer Cummings?
No, Your Honor, we ask that he be released.
Oh,
Right.
I do have one additional question I failed to ask, Your Honor.
Okay.
Just to follow up.
Sure.
There's no indication that the children were present during any of this. Is that correct?
To my knowledge, they were inside the house. I don't know where they were whenever this incident occurred.
Let me repeat my question, sir. There's no indication at all that the children were present during any of this alleged altercation between Ms. Lopez and Mr. McClendon. Yes, sir.
Objection, Your Honor, asked and answered. He already indicated he didn't know, but her children inside at the time he was there.
Other than them being in the house, there's no indication they were present or aware or in any way involved in the interaction.
I do not know. We were unable to talk with them.
Thank you.
Is that it?
That's it.
May I ask one follow-up?
Sure.
Okay, the report indicates that there might be video footage. Was video footage discovered since this report?
I'm not entirely sure. That would be a question for the detectives.
No more questions.
All right, anyone else?
No, young.
Officer Cummings, somewhere I read photos were taken. Do you know who took the photos?
Officer Gonzalez.
Okay, all right. All right, if no one has other questions for Officer Cummings, is that correct?
That's
Okay.
correct.
That's
Officer
correct.
Cummings, I'll release you so you can go about your afternoon's business. Thank you for your testimony and thank you for your service.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The department calls Sergeant Caleb Finsterwald. Your Honor. Sergeant Finsterwald, who do you work for?
The Amarillo Police Department.
And what do you do for them?
I am an evening shift supervisor.
And are you a certified police officer?
Yes, ma'am.
How long have you been one?
It'll be 15 years this June.
And did that require special training to become certified?
Yes.
Can you briefly go over that?
I attended the Amarillo Police Academy and consisted of about 6.5 months of classroom training on various topics related to policing and the law, and then approximately 3 to 4 months of field training, which was riding with a field training officer and teaching you how to do the job in the field.
Okay. And on March 10th of 2023, did you speak with Jonathan McClendon?
Yes.
And what did he state during that phone call?
He attempted to give me his side of the story. Officers had been dispatched to his residence, and who he called his ex-girlfriend had alleged that he had assaulted her. He denied assaulting her, saying that he had never left his house, from the inside of his house, that she had come to his home unannounced and had taken the air out of his tires and vandalized his car and tried to force her way inside. He told me that he remained on the inside of the door holding it shut until police arrived.
Did he indicate to you why he did not want to open the door?
He claimed that his children were asleep and he did not want to disturb them.
Okay. And following your conversation with Mr. McClendon, did you communicate with other officers on scene the information that he provided to you?
Yes.
Okay, pass the witness.
Did you have any proof of who owned the home?
I did not.
Were you there when Alyssa Lopez was trespassed?
I was not.
I'll pass the witness.
All right, Mr. Taylor?
And so far as you know, officer, do you have any reason to doubt what Mr. McClendon said about Ms. Lopez never entering the home, him never exiting the home?
Your Honor, I'm going to object to speculative.
Sustained.
I have no questions.
All right, Mr. Ingram?
No questions.
Anyone have follow-ups for Officer Finsterwald?
I do have a follow-up question, Your Honor.
Okay.
Sergeant Finsterwald, in regards to intimate partner violence packets or forms, if a victim or an alleged victim does not want to fill those out, is that up to them?
We attempt to get it in every domestic violence case, but clearly that depends on the cooperation of the victim in filling out that packet. So our policy is to attempt to get it in every domestic violence offense, but sometimes that's made difficult by the victim or the circumstances.
And in your experience, has it ever been Amarillo Police Department policy to threaten a victim with charges if they did not fill it out?
No.
Thank you. Pass the
All right,
witness.
then, can Officer Finsterwald be excused?
Is there a way I could ask officer a question?
Sir, no, you have an attorney.
Okay.
Do you want to go into a breakout room with your attorney to discuss what you want to ask?
Yes, sir, please.
Make it brief if you would, Mr. Taylor.
Okay, officer? Oh, yes, okay.
Yes.
You've testified as to the reason that Jonathan gave you for not wanting to open the door, being that he didn't want to wake the kids. Is that the only reason he gave you?
I don't recall, sir.
You don't recall? You don't recall that there were actually 3 reasons he gave you?
Your Honor, I'm going to object to facts not in evidence.
You can ask the question. Either he recalls that or he does not recall 3 reasons. You can answer the question, Officer Finsterwald.
If he gave me 3 reasons, the only one that I remember that struck me as important was that he did not want to wake up his children. We talked for maybe 10 minutes on the phone. He might have said something else, but I do not recall.
Okay, does it help your memory any if I suggest that perhaps he was concerned that you intended to arrest him if he opened the door or came out? Was that part of your discussion?
Yes.
Okay, nothing further, Your Honor.
Okay. Anyone else have other questions for Officer Finsterwald?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Can he be excused?
No objection.
No objection.
Okay, Officer Finsterwald, thank you for your testimony. I'll release you so you can go about your afternoon's business. Thank you for your testimony and thank you for your service.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
The department next calls Lucero Enriquez. Officer Enriquez, who do you work for?
Amarillo Police Department.
And are you a certified police officer with them?
Yes.
How long have you been a certified police officer for?
Since I believe July of 2019.
And did that require special training?
Yes.
Can you please tell us what your special training is briefly?
We had to do around 7 months of academy training and then 3 months of field training with another officer.
And how long have you been with APD for?
Since December 2018.
Okay, thank you. On April 4th of 2023, when you were working as an officer for APD, did you respond to a call at the home of Jonathan McClendon?
Yes.
What was the nature of the call?
It was a domestic disturbance.
And when you arrived, who did you observe?
Alyssa, Jonathan, and Jonathan Jr. And Jolis all by the front porch.
Okay. And at that time, did Elisa make any statements?
Yes. She said that she was going to take her children with her because Jonathan had been taking them around another female.
And what was her demeanor at that time?
She was yelling She was irate. Anytime I tried to talk to her, she just kept speaking louder and louder and wouldn't let Jonathan talk at all.
Did she also indicate that her name was on the bills?
Yes.
And what did you take that to mean?
That she was saying that she lived there also.
Okay. And when asked about her relationship with Jonathan, what did she indicate?
She said that they were working on things.
Now, at this time, did you also speak with Jonathan?
Yes.
What was Jonathan's explanation of events?
He said that him and the children were asleep in the living room. He heard his dog start barking. He went to his bedroom window to go look outside. As soon as he did that, he heard the back door open. He ran back down the hallway and saw Alyssa coming in. Alyssa tells him, "Where's Franny at?" And I'm taking the children with me. After that, Jonathan said that he called 911, at what point Alyssa hits him on the right side of his face with an open hand and then knocks his phone off out of his hand. Jonathan picks it up. He's walking away from Alyssa, and Alyssa keeps hitting him until we get there.
Did Jonathan state whether or not he felt pain?
He said they did not hurt.
Okay. Now, what did Jonathan state as to whether or not Alyssa was living in the home with him at that time?
He said that she hasn't been living there for the last couple of months and that she lives at a different address.
And now, while you were on scene, did you also speak with other officers?
Yes, Officer Rios.
Okay. And at some point while you were speaking with Officer Rios, had Alyssa and Jonathan been separated?
They were separated. Alyssa was outside, Jonathan was inside. And then when I went to go speak with Officer Rios outside, Alyssa went back inside and we could hear her yelling at Jonathan.
Okay. And what steps did you take after that?
We tried to find out who was the owner of the residence. Neither of their names was on the PRAD website, according to our dispatcher. And so then I went back inside and asked Jonathan if he had any rental agreement or was paying mortgage. And he said that he had an agreement with the guy, but nothing was written on paper.
Okay. So at this point, it sounds like you're unable to confirm who has the legal right to access to the property. Is that correct?
Correct.
But were you as an officer still concerned because of the domestic violence that was described?
Yes. Alyssa kept yelling and we believe that if we left, something else would happen.
Okay. And who did you determine in your investigation at that time to be the primary perpetrator in that incident?
Alyssa.
Okay. What steps did you take next?
I went and talked to Alyssa again, tried to tell her, hey, just leave for the night. You guys figure something out. She kept saying she wasn't going to leave. She was going to take her children with her. So at that time, I told her, you're going to be placed under arrest. Give Jonathan Jr. back to Jonathan. And at that time, Alyssa started crying, said, no, I'll leave. I don't want to go to jail. And eventually we were able to get her in handcuffs and removed from the residence.
Now, did you help Jonathan McClendon fill out an intimate partner violence packet?
Yes.
Do you have a copy of that packet in front of you?
Yes.
And how many pages is that document?
5.
Okay. Now, in that packet, what was Mr. McClendon's account? Strike that. Was Mr. McClendon's account in that intimate partner packet that he wrote out the same as what he told you in your incident report?
Yes.
Okay. Additionally, at the end of that intimate partner violence, is there a questionnaire that asks whether or not the assaultant, Alyssa Lopez, had committed other acts of domestic violence?
Yes.
Okay. On that last page of that form, did Jonathan McClendon indicate that Alyssa had tried to kill him?
Yes. He said that she got her brothers to beat him up.
Okay. Did Jonathan also indicate that Alyssa had hit him with a hammer before?
Yes.
Did he also indicate that he believed Alyssa was capable of killing him?
Yes.
Okay. Pass the witness.
All right. Ms. Archer.
I have no questions at this time.
All right, Mr. Taylor.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Before we proceed, can I take a break with my attorney, please?
Sure.
Your Honor, may I take a restroom break as well?
Yeah, we'll take about a 5 to 10 minute break.
When you arrived on the scene, was everyone inside the house or outside the house?
They were inside. We had to knock on the door.
Okay. And they willingly let you in?
Once I knocked on the door, like probably a couple seconds later, or maybe a minute, they opened the door and then came outside.
Okay. And were the kids asleep at that time?
Jonathan Jr. and Jolis were awake.
Okay. And which child went outside? Do you remember?
Jonathan Jr. Was outside. Alyssa was holding him.
Okay. And I just have one more question. Did my client is Alyssa, did she ask to be dropped off at her great grandfather's house?
Yes, once we told her that she would be under arrest.
Okay. And why did you choose not to just drop her off? So she was
Because she wasn't willing to leave prior to being told she was under arrest. She was given many options to leave and refused until she took the kids with her.
okay. I'll pass the witness.
Your Honor, I was not given an opportunity.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Taylor, go ahead.
Thank you. Officer, when you arrived, was there another female present?
I did not see any other female.
And did you determine whether there had at any point in time been when Alyssa?
No, she just said that a friend dropped her off.
Okay, so her concern about someone named Fanny or Franny, you didn't see anyone by that name there?
No, no one at all.
I guess what I'm trying to determine at any point in time, was there any domestic violence occurring when the children were present so that they were in any way traumatized by it that you're aware of?
Your Honor, I'm gonna object to speculation.
Sustain.
Well, yes, I'm trying to determine whether this officer is aware of any of it. Did she see any?
Then Mr. Taylor asked her if she saw any physical violence.
Did you see any physical violence?
No, I didn't.
Did you have any told to you that occurred while children were present?
I can't remember if Jonathan mentioned if the kids saw it.
Okay. You didn't document that any occurred with children saw, did you?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Thank you. Nothing further. I do have one additional follow-up question.
All right.
Officer, was there any mention at any point in time of either Jonathan McClendon or Elisa Lopez using drugs or being under the influence of drugs at any time during this incident?
I believe Jonathan has said that he thinks she's on something, but had no proof.
Okay, that's not mentioned in your report, is it?
No, I forgot to mention that.
Okay, but you think you remember that, but you're not sure?
Yeah, I can't remember. I think it was at the end, like towards the end, whenever he was filling out the IPV.
But he said he had no proof, or you didn't hear anything that gave you a strong enough indication to even mention it in your report. Thank you. Nothing further, Your Honor.
All right, Officer Enriquez, I'll go ahead and remove you so you can go about your afternoon's business. Thank you for your testimony and thank you for your service.
Thank you, Your Honor. The department calls David Anderson as its witness. When did the department receive an intake on the family?
April 4th, 2023.
And what were the intake allegations?
Allegations were for neglectful supervision by neglectful supervision of Violet Elisa Lopez of the 3 children.
Okay, and was Jonathan McClendon included in that intake?
No.
Okay. Do the children reside with Jonathan McClendon?
Yes.
And is that residence in Randall County, Texas?
Yes.
Okay. Now, when you received that intake, did you make contact with Mr. McClendon?
Yes.
And what did he state?
He stated that, on the 4th, I arrived at the residence. He came out onto the front porch. He acknowledged that a domestic violence incident had occurred at his residence involving himself and Elisa Lopez. He declined to discuss the incident. He declined to allow the children to be interviewed. He declined to have the residents assessed for safety of the children. And he allowed the 2 older children to be photographed, but not interviewed. He provided a picture of the youngest child, but would not allow that child to be observed for injuries.
Okay. And following that, did you make attempts to locate Elisa Lopez?
Yes.
And were you able to locate her at that time?
The first time that I spoke to Elisa in person was on 4/11 at San Jacinto Park.
Okay, but you made attempts on April 4th and April 5th that were unsuccessful. Is that accurate?
Yes, I attempted to contact her at both the residence that was listed for her on 3rd, as well as Jonathan's residence.
And on April 6th of 2023, did you speak with Mr. McClendon again at his residence?
Yes,
And what did he state?
he stated that he again reiterated that was not going to speak with us, and that us not seeing the children was our problem, not his.
Okay. And did he make any statements about a court order?
Yes, on that day he did in fact tell us that if we wanted to see the children or get any information, that we would have to seek a court order to do so.
Okay. Did he indicate whether or not he would follow that?
He did. He said that he would not follow it because it is a civil matter and the judge can't force me to be there.
Okay. And what statements did he make about New Mexico?
He made a statement that if it came to it, that he would go and hide in New Mexico again, much like he did in 2020 during a previous case.
Okay. Now, going back to those attempts to locate Elisa Lopez on April 4th of 2023, did you go to what you believed was her residence?
Yes, ma'am.
And for clarification, that's a different location than Mr. McClendon's residence. Is that correct?
Yes.
And did you see a Dodge Caravan in that driveway?
Yes.
Now, jumping back forward to April 6th of 2023, when you were at Mr. McClendon's home, did you also see that same vehicle in his driveway?
Yes.
Did you ask Jonathan to speak with Alyssa?
Yes.
And what did he state?
He said that I would have to find her on my own some other way, and that he's not going to help us find her. And that asked if we could provide my information to her through him. And he said that that would be a violation of a restraining order, and that I'd have to do it on my own.
Okay. Now, following that, on April 7th, did you review prior incident reports regarding the family?
Yes.
And did you find that there were other incidents of assault or domestic violence for the family?
Yes.
Okay. Also on April 7th, 2023, did you attempt to contact Jonathan at his residence?
Yes.
And what happens?
I arrived at the residence with another investigator, and the father's, just to clarify, it's the father's residence, not the mother's residence you're asking, correct?
Yes, Jonathan McClendon, Mr. McClendon. Now, Mr. Anderson, did you make contact with Jonathan at his residence on April 10th of 2023?
Yes.
And at that time, were you allowed to observe and photograph Jonathan Jr.?
Yes.
And did he agree that he would have Ms. Lopez contact you?
Yes.
But did he also indicate that after that, he was no longer going to speak with you?
Yes.
Now, following that conversation, did you receive contact by Ms. Lopez?
Yes.
And did y'all make arrangements to meet the next day?
Yes.
Now, moving to April 11th, 2023, did you meet with Ms. Lopez at San Jacinto Park?
Yes.
Who else was present?
Jonathan McClendon, as well as I believe all three children. However, I only observed two. The youngest infant car seat was obscured by the vehicle.
Okay. Now, what did she state regarding the domestic violence incident?
She acknowledged that there was a domestic violence. She stated that she lives at the address on Royce Drive. However, she had not been staying there recently because they had been fighting. She had been staying with her brother Anthony on Third Avenue.
Did she indicate where in the home the altercation took place?
She said that the physical altercation took place in the hallway.
Okay. And did she indicate where the children were at that time?
In the living room.
And did she indicate whether they were asleep or awake?
She indicated that they were asleep.
Did she further state that she did not interact with the children until after law enforcement showed up?
Yes.
And what did she state about domestic violence history with Mr. McClendon?
That she has a very extensive history.
Okay, and did she specifically say it was a domestic violence history?
Yes.
Okay. However, did she contradict herself and then say that they never fight or argue around the children?
Yes.
Now, did Mr. McClendon interfere with this conversation?
Yes.
Okay, and what did he state?
He stated that I was endangering the children by meeting at the park, and that we needed to finish the conversation as quickly as possible after, Alyssa and I had been talking for about 10 minutes.
And did Alyssa continue or attempt to continue to speak with you?
Yes.
And what statements or actions did he make following that?
He refused to let, or he got upset and stormed off. A couple of minutes later, he came back and said that we are done talking. Alyssa tried to let him know that I was just trying to get information about, living circumstances and stuff like that. And then he became outraged at the line of questioning about his residence and why we would need to see the residence. And he ended he indicated that the conversation was complete.
Now, as far as Alyssa and Jonathan's prior CPS history, are there any allegations of drug use in that CPS history?
In the prior cases, yes.
And based on that, were you asking Ms. Lopez to submit to a drug screen?
Yes.
And how did she respond?
She said, she was adamant that she would not screen, and laughed at the suggestion. And Jonathan became upset and started saying that I was accusing them.
Then on April 14th of 2023, did you contact Ms. Lopez again?
On which day?
April 14th of 2023.
Yes.
And what was your purpose for contacting her?
I was trying to get her to come into the office to complete the interview.
Okay. And were you hoping to discuss the family potentially working services voluntarily?
Yes.
And what did she state that day about domestic violence?
That the department was not going to threaten her by using her children as leverage, and that she and her family were going to New Mexico or go move back to New Mexico, so that we would not have any jurisdiction or ability to do anything to them.
Now, additionally, did she indicate on that day that there had been no domestic violence between her and Mr. McClendon?
Yeah.
Based on the information you've gathered in your investigation, as well as the testimony by law enforcement today, do you believe that both parents have created a neglectful situation that interferes with their safety?
Yes.
Do you believe that the domestic violence between them is a continuing danger to the children?
Yes.
And that the children will continue to be at substantial risk of neglect if parents are not working services?
Yes.
Now, specifically for Ms. Lopez, are we asking the court to order her to undergo a psychological or psychiatric evaluation?
Yes.
Are we asking the court to order her to participate in individual therapy?
Yes.
Are we asking the court to order her to enroll in a parenting class?
Yes.
Are we also asking for a drug and alcohol assessment and drug testing?
Yes.
Are we asking that she complete rational behavior therapy?
Yes.
Are we asking that she complete a batterer's intervention program?
Yes.
Are we asking that she comply with a service plan with the Family-Based Safety Services Department?
Yes.
And that she stay in contact with the department?
Yes.
Now, Mr. Anderson, this case appears to have both parents as alleged victims and alleged perpetrators of domestic violence. Is that correct?
Yes.
With that, is the department asking that both parents be ordered to complete the domestic violence program or only the batterer's intervention program?
They will, the department is requesting that they complete the batterer's intervention program and follow whatever guidelines are recommended.
Okay, thank you. And are we asking for identical services with Mr. McClendon?
Yes.
And do you believe that that will help alleviate the risk and neglect to the children?
Yes.
Pass the witness.
Mr. Anderson, I've been told in cases for several years that women don't qualify for the BIP program. Are you aware that women can be enrolled in the BIP program?
I'll have to defer to Kathy Jones for that.
Okay, all right. Okay, we'll get to that. Okay, Ms. Archer, questions?
Yes, I just want to clarify something in your testimony. You said that my client said there was domestic violence, but then contradicted herself and said there wasn't violence around the children. Was that your testimony?
Yes, Alyssa has stated that there was a domestic violence incident and that they do have a substantial history of domestic violence, but she has also made statements saying that there was no domestic violence, as well as this incident did not occur around the children.
Okay. And then are you aware of my client's school and work schedule?
She has expressed concern about her school and work schedule, yes.
And are you aware that she lives out of state currently?
No.
So my question, I guess, is whether she would be able to complete all of those services around her school and work schedule.
That would be for between her and family-based services as to which programs and arrangements can be made.
Would she have any say of when she goes to those services?
Again, that would be between family-based services and what arrangements she can make with them as to which programs they feel she best is suited for.
Yeah, I'll pass the witness.
All right, Mr. Taylor.
Yes, thank you. Now, Mr. Anderson, there's been some mention that Jonathan has lived in the house on Royce Street since for some 6 years. Is that correct?
I don't believe that he ever told me how long he has resided at that residence. He
Okay.
refused to discuss demographics with me.
You're familiar with the prior history in this case, is that correct?
I've read through the prior history, yes.
Is there an indication in that record as to who in the department he made the denial to that there was any Native American heritage affiliation?
He made a denial to CPI Martinez on May 15th, 2022 in that case, and I can provide you that case number if you want.
Did you ever address that with him?
I asked Alyssa Lopez that, and she said during my interview that neither of them did.
But you did not ask Jonathan specifically.
Jonathan would not agree to an interview, so I could not clarify any of the information that I had with him.
Would it concern you that Jonathan has mentioned to me that he does have a Navajo heritage?
If he would like to, if that's the case, then we would be more than happy to address that appropriately given the information.
Now, the actual concern here is not so much that Alyssa and Jonathan have had a history of domestic violence, but whether or not that domestic violence has included the children. Is that correct?
There is concern. The department is concerned that the domestic violence occurs around the children.
Now, in your report, you mentioned that when you went out on the 4th of April, I believe you already mentioned that Jonathan was not included in the accusations in the intake. Was that your statement?
He was not included in the initial intake accusations, correct?
Then when you went out on the 4th and made contact with him at the residence, you wrote, "I did not smell any concerning odors in the home during the visit, and Jonathan appeared to be acting appropriately during our conversation."
Yes.
And he did allow you to see the older two children. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you wrote that they have both appeared clean and healthy. Correct?
Yes.
At any point, at any time, has there been concern of them, specific allegations of them being present during any of the domestic violence?
Your Honor, I'm going to object to asked and answered. During my questioning of Mr. Anderson, he did testify that Ms. Lopez indicated the children were asleep in the living room during the altercation.
I've already noted that, so.
On this incident, that's what she said, sir?
Are you asking me?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, yes. She stated to me that the children were asleep in the during the incident that happened, and it occurred in the hallway.
And that's the contradiction you were talking about.
She had also stated that on the 14th that no domestic violence had occurred, which directly contradicts her prior statement to me.
You also have mentioned several times concerns about the two of them violating a no contact order, or I believe your testimony was a restraining order, but yet on page 4, you put in your report, I confirmed that there was no protective order in place between
Correct.
Alyssa and Jonathan or the children. Is that correct?
Yes, I did, however, confirm that there was a bond restriction in place prior to the DV council meeting.
That was with regard to a Class C misdemeanor that Randall County rejected the charge.
Yes.
Okay, so in effect, once Randall County rejected the charge, there is no bond restriction even on that Class C misdemeanor.
Correct.
Okay. Then on April 7, you document that you contacted Women's and Children's, and quote, all 3 children are established patients of Kendall Travis. Jolie and King are current on their well child checks and immunizations, etc. So there were no concerns there. Is that correct?
Correct. There were no concerns.
Also on April 7, you contacted a paternal uncle, Thomas McClendon, who said that he had no concerns regarding the children.
Your Honor, I'm going to object to hearsay.
Okay.
You talked to a number of people regarding the children and found no one expressing any concern regarding care of the children in care of either parent. Is that correct?
There were no concerns expressed.
Pardon?
No.
Your affidavit is what, 12 pages long, 11 pages long, and documents many people you contacted, and you did not contact a single person that expressed concern regarding the care of the children with either of these parents. Is that correct?
Your Honor, I'm going to object to hearsay.
Same.
I'm not asking for what anyone said.
Yes, you are, and you're asking that no one said anything. That's still hearsay. You could have all those 11 pages of people testify, but to ask him what they told him is hearsay.
I'm asking him.
Mr. Taylor, move on. I'm not going to argue this point with you.
Did you find a single person who expressed concern regarding the care of the children with either Elisa or Jonathan?
Objection, hearsay.
Sustained.
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Ingram, questions?
No questions.
All right, anyone have follow-ups for Mr. Anderson? We'll start with you, Ms. Gutierrez.
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Anderson, did Mr. McClendon address the court at the last hearing?
Yes.
Do you recall any statements he made about marijuana?
I don't.
Okay. Now, with women that are alleged perpetrators of domestic violence, is it correct that the department typically asks for the court to order them to enroll in Women Against Violence, also known as the WAVE program?
Yes.
Are we asking the court to order that program for Ms. Lopez instead of the Batters Intervention and Prevention program, also known as BIP?
Yes.
And other than that, are the services we are asking Mr. McClendon to complete identical?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Pass the witness.
All right, then. Ms. Gutierrez, do you have any further witnesses?
Yes, Your Honor, I'd like to, I'm sorry.
I was gonna ask if I could have a break with my attorney for a question that he should ask Mr. Anderson.
Very, very briefly.
Yes, sir.
I'm being very briefly. I'm going to close I'll close the
Yes, sir.
breakout room if y'all can't do it
Yes, sir.
quickly.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, just a couple briefly, Your Honor. Mr. Anderson, you've indicated that Mr. McClendon was not part of the initial intake, but apparently after April 7, he became part of it. Is that basically a correct understanding? The indication is that on or about the 7th is when you decided to include him in your request for services?
He was included with the request for services with Alyssa when we decided to send the case to services.
And why was that decision made at that time?
Based on conversations at the Domestic Violence Council, his unwillingness to interact with the department, and her statements regarding the past domestic violence and the case history, the department felt that it would be beneficial or that both parents work services for the safety and continued well-being of the children.
And you think it's
Can I have a break with my lawyer?
This is going to be the last break any of y'all have with your lawyers. So, and I'm going to make this one very quick. All right. Anyone have further questions?
just to finish up with Mr. Anderson, Your Honor?
Okay.
What I'm seeing, Mr. Anderson, is that your boilerplate requiring or wanting to require Mr. McClendon to do everything that Ms. Lopez is being required to do, as opposed to tailoring a service plan for him when he hasn't been responsible for the domestic violence nearly to the extent that she has. Can you address that?
Yes, they're both expected to do the same, or we are requesting the same thing because we've been unable to speak to him. So we have no way to address the domestic violence or his part in the domestic violence.
That's what it is, Your Honor.
All right. Anyone else have further questions for Mr. Anderson?
Very briefly, Your Honor. Mr. Anderson, is it your understanding that Ms. Lopez made allegations of physical abuse and domestic violence against Mr. McClendon?
Yes.
And that was supported by Officer Cummings' testimony, is that correct?
Yes.
Pass the witness.
Anyone else? All right, then, Ms. Gutierrez, any other witnesses?
No other witnesses, Your Honor. At this time, the department rests.
All right, thank you. Ms. Archer, any witnesses?
No witnesses. Will we get brief argument?
He didn't deny it.
And now the judge is gone, so everybody just hang on.
Well, I almost did. Yeah, said, well, the client made it clear he wanted to testify.
Bill, you're not muted.
Thank you.
God is so good.
CPS is supposed to have burden of proof.
The burden of proof is we can't get him, so we have no choice but to do it this way.
Ms. Archer,
Yes.
you may need to check the chat box. I think messages intended for you are going to everybody.
Oh, no. Okay. Yeah, I'm trying to text my client.
Judge, you're muted.
Can y'all hear me now? I lost internet and Zoom.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Are we waiting on somebody else now?
Yes.
I thought I heard you, Ms. Archer, say you trying to text your client?
Oh, she chatted me in the chat
Oh,
box, but it's okay.
All right. I forgot where we were now. Mr. Taylor, I believe I'd asked you if you had any witnesses, and then that's when I lost my signal.
And I do wish to call my client, Your Honor.
Okay. Mr. McClendon, if you would unmute.
And Jonathan, you live here in Amarillo at the Royce Street address?
Yes, sir.
You probably don't want to say that. This is being broadcast live on YouTube.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm a creator, so they all know my address.
Okay. And how long have you lived at that address?
6 years.
Okay. Now, for period of time did Elisa live with you at that address?
Yes.
And how long have you and she been separated?
Separated about 10 months.
Okay, and during that period of separation, have the children been there with you?
Yes, sir.
You're the primary caregiver.
Yes, sir.
And do you know where she is currently living?
Yes, sir. She lives in Albuquerque. I'm not sure exactly of the address, but she lives in Albuquerque.
Did she for a while live at a different address here in Amarillo?
Yes. While we were unsure of how things would go with the court and she was afraid to move around, she stayed with her brother until she could get back home or knew it was legal to go back home.
How long has she been at the Albuquerque address?
I'm not sure. That was one of our, past fights that happened then. I'm not sure when she moved there.
And you and she have had periods of frequent episodes of difficulty getting along. Is that correct?
Yes.
Have the children been present during those episodes?
No. The one thing we always do, my mother or my father are always, and it's listed in their medical work. My mother and my father are always going to, in any incident, take my children if we feel like we're overwhelmed by the situation at all. We're both been involved in CPS cases as children, and we know how this matter goes and what it can do to children. So we just try to make sure they are totally isolated of the events.
Have you been pretty reluctant to allow the state to get involved in your life and with you and your children?
Yes, sir.
And do you feel like that's within your rights?
I more than feel like, I know that's within my right not to freely express myself or let one express themselves that I'm intimidated or afraid of.
You realize that court has the right to make that decision on its own based on the evidence presented, and if the court determines that that's the case, then the court will enter an appropriate order. You're going to obey that order, whatever it is?
Well, I did take an oath on this stand today, so I'm going to plead the fifth on that.
Okay. I'm going to pass the witness at this point.
All right, Ms. Gutierrez.
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. McClendon, do you have any Indian ancestry, any Native American ancestry?
Also going to plead the fifth on that one. I already answered that question.
But you can't plead the fifth on that. That's something the court has to know.
I state that when my counsel is there a possibility the court could ask my counsel? Because I've already answered that question.
And what I need to know really, Mr. McClendon, is whether or not you are a tribal member of any Native American tribe here in the U.S.
And that's the direct reason for my pleading the fifth. If I should answer that question ill-informed and tell a lie, now I'm a perjurer.
Your Honor, if I may inquire if Mr. Taylor has any knowledge if Mr. McClendon is a tribal member?
I have no specific knowledge other than Mr. McClendon has told me that his father is and I don't remember if he said actually a specific tribal member or not, but
That's okay. I'll withdraw the question.
tribal affiliation with the Navajo tribe.
Your Honor, I asked the court to take judicial notice of the Indian Child Welfare Act that defines the child custody proceedings that ICWA is involved in and that ICWA applies to. And I also take the court I requested the court take judicial notice that ICWA does not apply to this OTP case.
That's correct. I agree with you. I'll take notice of the fact that since this is not a case of removal and custody, then ICWA doesn't apply. So
correct.
Yeah, pass the witness.
Okay. Ms. Archer, questions?
No questions, Mr. McClendon.
Mr. Ingram?
No questions.
All right, Mr. Taylor, do you have any other witnesses?
I do not, Your Honor. Rest.
And Mr. Ingram, any witnesses?
No witnesses.
All right, then somebody asked for closing argument. I'll start with you, Ms. Gutierrez. Do you have
Your
anything
Honor,
to say?
before we continue, I do have one more question for Mr. McClendon.
Okay.
Mr. McClendon, at the last hearing, you mentioned marijuana. Is that correct?
I don't recall.
Okay. Do you smoke marijuana or use any other type of marijuana?
That's going to be another one that I plead the fifth on.
Okay, pass the witness.
Anyone else? Okay, then we'll start. Ms. Gutierrez, did you have any closing argument to make?
Very briefly, Your Honor. While we do recognize that the parents are not fully in a relationship, there still does appear to be a relationship there. Additionally, there are concerns that even if they are not together, do need to be addressed by the court. We do believe that testimony supports that children have been present in the home during at least one domestic violence incident that law enforcement was involved in. And we believe that these services are necessary to address that risk to the children, and that the parents, unfortunately, despite obviously caring about their children, are presenting a continuing risk and danger to the children.
Okay. All right, Ms. Archer, did you have anything to say?
Yes, Your Honor. My client loves her kids and is willing to do services for them. Her concern is that she lives in New Mexico. She goes to school from 9 to 3 p.m. and then she works from 6 to 10. So already when she does get to see her kids, it's in a very narrow window. And I'm not sure if she's going to have the time to complete everything that would be required of her. However, she did start drug and alcohol classes. She signed up and those will begin this Thursday. So she's already made steps to better herself. And she's willing to work the services. I'm just not sure how she's going to fit it in.
All right, thank you. Mr. Taylor, anything to say?
Just very, very briefly, Your Honor, it's pretty obvious that Mr. McClendon is a caring and loving father and primary caregiver for his children for, well, at least the last 10 months. And I think the evidence that's been presented to the court may be enough to show that there's been some domestic violence incidents between him and the mother of the children, and perhaps the children were in the home, but I don't think it rises to the level, Your Honor, of showing that there's been any detriment to their well-being whatsoever. And I don't know that it really is enough to show that it warrants intrusion into their lives to require the service plan at this point. Perhaps we're reaching a bit, and I would argue that that's the case. I think the state might have some reason to be concerned, but I just don't think we're quite there yet to give them what they need to reach into these people's lives and force a service plan. And that's basically my argument here.
All right. Mr. Ingham, recommendations on behalf of the children?
I believe it would be in the children's best interest for an order to participate in services to be entered.
Okay. All right, then, based on the evidence I've heard today, then I'm going to order that both parents engage in the services as set out in the department's petition in this case. One possible modification is from what they've asked for in their pleadings, at least. I'll order that Mr. McClendon be evaluated for the BIP program, Batter's Intervention Prevention Program, and follow any recommendations if he qualifies. I'll order that Ms. Lopez undergo an evaluation to see if she qualifies for the WAVE program, Women Against Violence. If either of the parents doesn't qualify for that, either of those programs, BIP or WAVE, then I'll just order that the problem with the domestic violence be taken up with their individual therapy, which is also one thing that the department has ordered. So we can handle it that way if they don't qualify for BIP or WAVE. All right, Ms. Gutierrez, did you want a compliance hearing?
Yes, Your Honor, please.
How far out do you think?
Let me see. Kathy, do you want 2 or 3 months out? Do you feel like one of those is better?
Usually I think we go with 3 months, correct?
3 months, Your Honor, unless one of the parents' attorneys wants one sooner. And Your Honor, I forgot to ask in closing for drug screens to be ordered. Is it too late for me to request them?
Well, you've got that as one in your pleadings, so you can request it.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, then. That will conclude this hearing. So we will stand in recess, and I'll see y'all back on August 21st.